Welcome, fans, to episode 108 of Rangers Ed, presented by Lucarelli Law. If you're in Florida and need a lawyer, call Lucarelli Law and tell them the boys at Rangers Ed sent you. This is your host, Cousin Ed, here with my co-host, Little Ed and Coach Ed, and our producer, Mikey Produces, is back, a new resident of Florida, so you'll have the services of Lucarelli Law available to you if anything
I mean,
happens.
I was gonna say I can't wait, but I guess I could wait. But at least I know I'm covered.
Between me and Dom, you're good. All right. How'd everything go with the move, though? You all settled now? You back ready to get back into it?
Yes, I'm very excited to be back. It was a very stressful couple months dealing with the whole moving situation, lining things up. But our prayers were answered. Everything worked out, and we're down here settled and ready to start our new chapter.
I heard Coach Ed was carrying a lot of furniture up to the second floor of your house. Is that true?
There is a hole in the wall, so there might have been.
Not a stick.
Oh man, what's up, Little Ed? What's going on with you?
There actually wasn't a lot of heavy stuff that needed to go up to the second floor, if I remember correctly. But that was a nice long break. I feel like I haven't spoken to you guys in a while about hockey, other than some texts here and there that Coach Ed doesn't read. But other than that, I'm excited to be back at the gym. So I'm very sore at the moment. Saw some holiday pounds coming back on, so I decided to go a little heavy at the gym this week, and I'm definitely paying for it. But other than that, I'm feeling good. Excited to talk some Rangers hockey with you guys. Excited for our guest. Kind of long awaited. We've been teasing some special guests. This is one of them. I don't know if you want me to say it, but Statboy Steven's joining us, a big Twitter personality around the Rangers Twitterverse, if you will. So yeah, excited about that one. Talk about some Rangers prospects and that kind of stuff, and definitely an interesting guy that we got a chance to meet in person at the Hall of Fame, and he's been looking forward to joining the show. So I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, super excited for that. If you guys don't follow the account, you definitely should. Statboy Steven's got a lot of good info, and we'll get into it when he joins us. But all right, we got 9 games to cover. We got 2 weeks of hockey here, so let's just jump right into the jersey profiles, sponsored by Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey.
Our buddy Oscar, a huge Rangers fan himself, started his company by stitching his own blue shirts. Once he perfected his craft and started to fall in love with his work, the man started to grow. Oscar stitches every jersey with love and dedication to authenticity, which never disappoints. His talent is hard to find in any store out there. Are you like Cousin Ed? You have a lingering jersey curse that every player he gets a jersey of gets traded or injured and hurts the Rangers team? You want to change things up? You want to take an Eric Lindros jersey and make it a vintage Ken Hodge jersey in the late 70s? Got an old jersey collecting dust in your closet? Want to throw your name on the back and add a nice number of one of your favorite players? You can bring it back to life with a brand new kit at Oscar's Pro Stitch. So head on over to Oscar's Instagram at Oscars PSH, that's OSCARS PSH, to check out the countless tarps he's already done and to place the order for his next one that possibly can post on Instagram, and get ready to wear it to the next Ranger game or any event that you have coming up. Tell them the boys from Rangers Ed sent you and receive a special discount at Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey. Go get them, Rangers.
All right, so our jersey profile in episode 108 is number 8, Steve Vickers. Played 10 seasons with the Rangers, 698 games, scored 246 goals, 586 points. He was a first-round pick in 1971, 10th overall. He won the Calder Trophy in 72-73, was a second-team NHL All-Star in 74-75, and a 4-time 30-goal scorer, 41 his career high. Coach, you probably remember Vickers, but I thought this was an interesting story when I was looking into him. I was wondering why he retired at 30 years old after a pretty successful career. And there was a story about Herb Brooks and Craig Patrick. Apparently, in 81-82, the Rangers sent Vickers to the AHL by Herb Brooks did. He only had 9 goals in 34 games that year. And at the end of the year, he asked Craig Patrick, do I still have a future with the Rangers? And Patrick said no. So Vickers retired based on that. I thought that was interesting. Nowadays it'd be like, well, trade me then, or it's a little
Yeah.
different, but that's a very old school type story. Do you remember that at all?
I don't really remember that. No, I can't say that. His nickname was Sarge, and he used to get a lot of garbage goals, rebounds
Do you
in
know-
front of the net.
Do you know
Right,
why his
I-
nickname was Sarge?
I don't.
I looked it up. Well, I thought it would be, since I had Mr. Ranger on for Gilbert, I thought it'd be cool to include everyone's nickname if they had something unique. So I just looked up Vickers. I didn't know it was Sarge. I just looked up Steve Vickers' nicknames, and the story popped up. Once on the Rangers as a true NHL rookie, Steve developed a on-ice rapport with fellow forwards Walkachuk and Bill Fairbairn, forming a renowned trio known. What did I say? Fairbairn? No,
It's Fairbairn.
forming a. That's what I said first. Fairbairn forming a renowned trio known as the Bulldog Line and netting himself 30 goals and 23 assists. He also earned the nickname Sarge for an old Army jacket he would wear to practice.
Did not know that.
Yeah, see that?
You learn something
That is-
every day.
That's interesting.
It's a lot tougher.
So pretty good, pretty good Ranger though. I mean, I thought his career was pretty good, and I was just like, wow, 30 years old, pretty young to retire. But yeah, Steve Vickers. All right. Yeah, I mean, look, there were a bunch of number 8s that were like pretty good players that I could have chosen, but I went with Vickers. I could have chose Turcotte. Who was
Turcotte, yeah.
part of that youth movement that the Rangers traded leading up to their cup run. Traded for Steve Larmer. I could have chosen Trouba, obviously, as number 8. So, I mean, there was a bunch of them. But all right, let's get into the games. So prior to the last episode, the Rangers were 21-7-1. They're 5-3-1 since then in these 9 games, sitting at 26-10-2, 54 points, first in the Metro, tied for first in the NHL with Winnipeg and Boston. Started out at Toronto, a win. Igor Shesterkin gets the win over Martin Jones. Then they were home against Edmonton, a 4-3 loss with Quick in net, his first regulation loss of the season. Home against Buffalo, a 4-3 OT win with the Chris Kreider game winner. Home against Washington, a 5-1 win, pretty decisive victory. On the road, their annual New Year's Eve Florida trip that I can never attend. They play the Panthers in Sunrise. Quick gets the loss there, 4-3. Then Shesterkin rebounds against Tampa the next night with a 5-1 victory. Home against Carolina, a 6-1 loss in Coach Ed's words. Tough one to watch. Home against Chicago, 4-1 Rangers. And then in Montreal last night, a 4-3 shootout loss to the Montreal Canadiens. All right. So, look, we talked about this before the break. There were going to be 9 games, or I think we said 10 at the time, but we moved things around or whatever. So 9 games over the holidays. What's the Rangers' record going to be in those games? Where are they going to be? 5-3-1. Not bad, but it feels like a downturn. But is it really a downturn? Were the Rangers just that good early on that this feels that way? Coach, I'm going to go to you. I mean, do you think this was a successful stretch, or do you think they got a lot to work on here?
I mean, I think it's a successful stretch. I mean, the thing that I'm looking at, I notice, is it's a lot of seesaw games. They're getting killed 5-1. They're winning 5-1. It's like, I don't know, maybe the consistency's not there. You listen to Valaket interviews, and he's a little frustrated with some neutral zone play and some pushing the pucks out of our zone in the defensive zone. Better than making the mistakes now than towards the end in April. So let's see what happens. They are coming back after a loss, though, which is a good sign.
Well, I think the biggest thing is kind of inconsistency, especially against Carolina. I mean, the biggest thing I've been saying is like they always tend to show up in the big games against like the stronger teams, like division rivals or conference rivals or whatever. Even against like the Kings, so whatever, just rivals in general. I actually couldn't go to the Carolina game with Coach Ed. I wasn't feeling great after work, so I felt bad watching it on TV. I felt like I sent Coach Ed into war by himself.
Oh,
Just,
my God.
Every goal, I was just like, just couldn't watch.
Well, the bottom line with that is my buddy Joe came with me,
Yeah.
and the 2 games he went to were not watchable game. So I told him he's not allowed to go the rest of the season. He came
That's
to the
true.
Buffalo game for your birthday, and he came to that one.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I'm like,
Well,
you're
we'll
not
see.
coming anymore.
We'll see how we do tomorrow or tonight if you're listening against Vancouver. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest
Joe's not
thing.
going, right?
Nah, just being coach.
All right.
But yeah, like I said, the biggest thing for me is inconsistency. I know they have a great record coming off a loss, but like it's more of like the gameplay when they lose to me. That's like stand out. So I think they got to work on that, which is kind of like a Rangers thing in recent years, inconsistent play. I mean, I know it's hard to keep an 82-game season playing the same hard pace, but I mean, I don't know. That's my takeaway from this stretch where I know we've been gone for a while. It was kind of like a lot of ups and downs. Overall, it was a success, but there was a lot of ups and downs.
I don't see. What I don't understand a lot is, I mean, obviously when we play that little, baloney pickup game, you give the puck away all the time.
Baloney pickup game.
What I'm noticing in these games, like the Chicago game, that game could have turned the other way very quick. They had
That's what I'm talking about. Like
they had a lot of giveaways in that game. They had a lot of giveaways, and they kept doing the same giveaway over and over and over.
And that was coming off the Carolina game too, so that was back to back
after you make that one giveaway, don't you go back to the bench and say, look, I'm not going to make that cross ice up the middle in our zone anymore. I'm going to chip it. I'm going to do that. I can't see it over and over. That drives me crazy. I'm sure Laviolette doesn't, like seeing it either. But
yeah, it's hard to think that far back to the Leafs game, how they played exactly that game. But like all the other games, I don't really remember being impressed. I mean, definitely the Capitals game, that was a big win against
the Tampa Bay game was a big win. They shut down Kucherov. I mean, he got a
Tampa
goal.
Bay, yes, that was very.
He wasn't dominating. That was a big win.
I think that was the biggest win of this stretch, without a doubt. The best game that they played, obviously.
The concern, the biggest one that stands out to me is the Carolina game. Obviously, is a bad loss, but Carolina has been red hot. They're only 5 points back. They have played 2 more games than the Rangers. The Rangers beat them earlier in the year. They beat us this time. All right. But, I mean, we can turn around in 30 days and Carolina is leading the Metro. Is that something we really care about as fans? I mean, yeah, you want to win the division, but it's about winning the cup, right? It's not really about winning the division. How much would it grind your gears, Coach, if Carolina does overtake the Rangers? If our play continues to slip a little and they stay red hot, would you care?
I'm more concerned with the fact that in this 9-game stretch, Igor seems to be back, and I'm looking to see them peak towards the end. If Carolina out, gets a few more points than they do and finishes ahead, you got to peak at the right time. That's always been, in my opinion, a history. And that's still going to be the key. They got to be running on all cylinders, have their lineup in place, and ready to roll for the playoffs.
Yeah, ironically, I mean, depending on how it shakes out, because the Metro's a bloodbath. The Rangers, if you end up in second, you may end up getting Philly or the Islanders. If you end up in leading the division, you may get New Jersey or Pittsburgh or Tampa. So you may be better off coming in second, getting Philly or the Islanders anyway, to be honest. But we'll see when we get later in the season how it plays out.
The key is going to be Shesty back in form going into the playoffs. That's what we need to see, because the Devils don't have the goaltending. They got lucky last year with Schmid. I don't know. Carolina's struggling with the goaltending. This kid seems to be doing well right now, but he's got 40 more games to go. That's going to be, to me, that's going to be the key.
Yeah. So another big thing that we got to talk about here is Brennan Othamann makes his NHL debut. Tyler Pitlick goes down with an injury. He's out day to day, week to week. It's all the same to me. So they call up Othamann and he gets his first taste of NHL action. So I think this is a good time to bring on our guest, Statboy Steven. Let's bring him in. Big Rangers. Let's bring in Statboy, the big Rangers Ed. Welcome here with the Gabe Perreault World Juniors U.S. jersey in the background. I love that.
Wow.
What's up, Statboy?
Nice.
Beautiful.
Hey guys, nice talking to you again after, of course, we met up in Toronto. So, yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for Ranger fans. Perreault, Fortescue winning gold in the World Juniors, Othamann and Edstrom making their debut. So from the prospect side, at least, it's very exciting.
Yeah, dude, definitely. So, yeah, we got a chance to meet you in Toronto, which was pretty awesome during the Lundqvist Hall of Fame trip. Recognized you from Twitter, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it's bad.
It happened a couple of times that weekend, and like it usually, I always travel to New York for preseason games, and preseason games is very low key. You know, we have a lot of like younger fans who attend the games because the tickets are relatively cheap. It usually happens at those games where people walk up to me and, you know, want to say hi or want to take a picture. I didn't expect it to happen in Toronto, to be honest, because you don't expect that many Ranger fans there. But I guess us Ranger fans travel everywhere. So it still happened a couple of times there. But yeah, always fun when it happens.
Yeah, so it was awesome to meet you. So why don't you just start by telling a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you end up blowing up on Twitter? Is this your career? You know, do you have like another career, or is like the Rangers Twitter your career? You know, just
I'm honestly, it's just a hobby. I was like years ago was dating a girl in New York, and when we were watching Ranger games, I would always, you know, look up stats, and if something weird happened during the game, I would always try to look it up. So she started calling me Statboy as a joke, and then she's like, you know what you should do? You should create a Twitter account to share this so you don't have to bother me with it anymore. Like, all right. So I created a Twitter account and I started tweeting these random stats. And this is like back in 2015 or 2016. And honestly, the first year and a half, like nobody really followed me. I had like 5 likes on a tweet or whatever. But when I moved to Vienna, Austria from the Netherlands, I started traveling for work around Europe, and this was around the same time the Rangers started acquiring a lot of draft picks. You know, it was the year where they traded Derek Stepan for the 7th overall pick. The following year, they traded, of course, Nash for a first rounder. They traded up for Keandre Miller. So there were a lot of prospects, and with me traveling to Sweden and Finland for work regularly, it gave me the opportunity to attend some games. And especially in Europe, it's really easy to connect to players. Like I remember Tim Stützle playing a game in Vienna. I just walk up to him before the game. They were just practicing like playing soccer outside before the game. Nobody really bothers them. You can just walk up to them and ask for a picture, and you can have like a chat with them. And I started doing that, you know, traveled to Germany to see Nils Lundqvist play. I drove to the Czech Republic to see Kravtsov and Kakko in an under-20 tournament. And I just started sharing those stories on Twitter. And that's when it really took off. So, and then in 2019, I went to the Ranger game in Calgary, which they lost 5-1, unfortunately. But that's when they actually showed me on the Ranger broadcast. So that's when it really took off, I guess. And then during the pandemic, because I had spoken to these players at these junior tournaments, it was easier for me to reach out to them. I started doing like a prospect interview series, because there was nothing really going on with the NHL on hold. And it just grew from there. And you know, now I think I'm on 16,000 followers now, and started doing daily prospect recaps and schedules every morning. I started doing that because of the pandemic as well. There was no NHL hockey, and I was like, you know, maybe Ranger fans want to know which prospects are playing today. So I did that for a couple of months. Then the NHL kicked off again. So I stopped doing them for about 2 weeks, and people were DMing me saying, hey, where are the prospect updates? Like, okay, I'll just continue doing them, I guess. So I've been doing them ever since. And yeah, you know, the latest prospect that the Rangers have drafted, you know, kind of got in touch with them, like Brennan Othamann and Yaroslav Chmielarz and Adam Edstrom. And just
you're gonna have to repeat that. What was that guy's name?
Yaroslav Chmielarz. He's the Czech winger that they drafted in the 5th round in 2020.
Yeah, see, I call him Chlemar. so that's all right.
It's probably the hardest name to pronounce of any Ranger prospect ever. So I don't blame people for struggling with it.
Mike could probably do it.
But yeah, no, I really enjoy sharing the prospect updates and the schedules, and when I try to follow like their team accounts, and whenever they score a goal, I try to share the video of the goal, and it's kind of a way for me to introduce these prospects to Ranger fans, so that when they do make the team in a couple of years, they're not complete strangers to this fan base. Unfortunately, the Rangers don't really put that much effort into it, so I kind of took that upon myself.
Statboy, you got to rewind a little bit though. You kind of glanced over. Well, first of all, we expect 16,000 downloads for this episode if you got that many followers. So no, but you kind of glanced over that they tweeted or showed your tweet on the broadcast. I mean, which broadcast? You mean the MSG one, right? Correct?
Yeah. So the Rangers played in Calgary, and I flew into Calgary because a friend of mine in Calgary had tickets, and he's like, if you fly into Calgary, I have tickets to the game. You want to go? So I flew to Calgary, and we had seats on the glass, and I brought like a sign and everything, and at the time, Elias Anderson was still on the team, and I don't really care that he turned into a bust. I support every prospect equally. If they're drafted by the Rangers, I'll support them until the day they're gone. Like until they're traded away or until they're released, I'll support them, because the Rangers need these players to come through. So we had a couple in the past, of course, like Will Cooley now on the team. A really good example of a player that actually made the team. Unfortunately, with Elias, it didn't work out. But at the time,
we got him for Elias, so nice.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. At the time, I was still rooting for him, so I was able to take a picture with him during warmups, and that picture actually showed up on the broadcast where Sam Rosen mentioned my Twitter handle, and that was that was so surreal. Growing up in Europe, following the Rangers, you never really think that Sam Rosen is going to mention you by name on the broadcast. So that was pretty crazy. I think I went from 2,000 to 5,000 followers in one weekend when I was in Calgary. So that was a pretty big bump. And it's been a lot of fun, and I've met some great people through it as well. I met some family members of players at games. They sometimes reach out to me and thank me for all the effort I put in. Like sharing the accomplishments of their son or brother or grandson. So it's not just Ranger fans that appreciate the effort that goes into it, and that actually makes me happy that these family members are thankful about it as well.
You're in the Netherlands, right?
I grew up in the Netherlands. I now live in Ireland. Yeah, my life story is a bit complicated. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. In my early 20s, moved to South Africa. Then I lived in Denmark for a year, then Luxembourg for a year, then back to the Netherlands, then Austria for 4 years, and now I've been in Ireland for the last 2.5.
Luxembourg is the city and country, right? It's the city, and it's like only one city, the whole country.
No, it's a bit bigger than just a city, but it's small enough. I think it's smaller than Rhode Island. So.
Oh, right. So how'd you become a Ranger fan with that travel?
So growing up in the Netherlands, when I was about 7 years old, my parents were going through a rough divorce. So every afternoon when I came home from school, I would go up into the attic, turn on the TV, and I'd watch anything that I could just, take my mind off of it. And there was one TV station called Screen Sport, and they were showing highlights of NHL games every afternoon at 4. So that became kind of like my ritual, coming home from school, turn on the TV, watch NHL highlights for an hour. And the reason I picked the Rangers, I always thought the Rangers were an interesting team because as a 7-year-old, I thought it was weird that they were the only team without a logo on their jersey. That's the only reason.
Wow.
So.
Well, Pittsburgh used to have it on the road. Right?
Yeah, they had the alternate jerseys, but they still had the other jerseys with the logo. But the Rangers only had the diagonal lettering.
Yeah, it is true. That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, we're happy to have you on board and giving us the info on Twitter.
Is that where your stats started right there when you figured out at 7 they were the only team without a logo?
That's the first stat you ever looked.
That's the first stat you came up with.
Maybe. Like even when I was a kid, I always tried to. I followed soccer a lot when I was a kid growing up in the Netherlands. So I would like memorize the Champions League winners going back to 1956. If I was bored in a waiting room for the dentist or something, I'd take pen and paper and just try to write them all down. Same with like Olympic host cities or FIFA World Cup tournaments. And, you know, it just grew from there. Just something I do to keep myself busy. And I cannot explain it. Like when something happens in the game, my brain just thinks, oh, that's something that probably doesn't happen very often. I wonder when was the last time it happened. And so I get up, you know, go onto my laptop, research it for about 5 minutes, and if it's interesting enough, I'll tweet about it.
Yeah, no, that's
cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. So, being that you're in Europe, I feel like the World Juniors outside of the U.S. is viewed probably more. I mean, I don't personally know any hockey fans in the U.S. that actually watch many World Junior games. I tried to follow it as best I could, but it's just a lot, you know. And I'm curious, you know, did you had a chance to watch it? I'm sure you're really into the World Juniors, right?
It's also tough because the top. Wait, sorry to cut you off. It's also tough in the United States because the games are on at like 11 in the morning, 10 in the morning.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
exactly.
we're all working. Most of us are working over here.
Yeah,
So
it's usually.
I think that'd be the biggest reason. Otherwise, I'd have it on the TV without a doubt. Yeah,
it's usually hosted in Canada. I think in a 15-year span or in a 20-year span, I think 13 of the 20 tournaments will be held in Canada. So the majority of the World Junior tournaments will be hosted in Canada. You have a couple in the US and then some sprinkled in there that are in Europe. But this year it was in Sweden. 2020 was in the Czech Republic. And I think those are the only two in Europe over the last 8 to 10 years. Maybe I'm missing one. I think there was one in Russia as well. But yeah, it makes it harder for people in North America to watch when the first game starts at 6 a.m., of course. But I always follow it because, you know, usually the Rangers have a couple of good prospects in them. This year it was only 3 prospects: Perreault, Drew Fortescue, and Adam Sikora, who was already with the Wolfpack. But in recent years, the Rangers have done really well. The Rangers are one of only 3 teams to have a gold medal winner in the last 4 tournaments. The others are Chicago and Montreal, who are both non-playoff teams. So the Rangers, for a playoff team, to have a gold medal winner in 4 consecutive World Junior tournaments, that's pretty impressive. And aside from that, there's also some silver medals. Kmelars had a silver medal last year. Noah Laba had a bronze medal. So the Rangers have had some decent success in the World Juniors over the last couple of years, which makes it more fun to follow.
And how much stock, you know, because every NHL draft, when guys are drafted, they talk about their World Junior performance, or, you know, when analyzing the prospects, you know, they talk about like Kakko. I remember in particular how he looked like a man amongst boys in the World Juniors. And so how much stock should we put into it? You know,
I'm not going to say it means absolutely nothing, because a guy like Connor Bedard dominated, and he's going to be a great player. But I wouldn't really judge a player based on a 7-game tournament that lasts for only 2 weeks, because in 2018, Elias Pettersson didn't have a great tournament for Sweden, and he turned out to be one of the best centers in the NHL. But then you have Jacob Josephson, Jordan Schroeder, who was drafted both were drafted the same year as Chris Kreider, and Jordan Schroeder, I think, led the World Juniors in scoring twice, and he's not even in the NHL. So it's by no means an indicator of success. As a fan, I think you should just look at it, watch the games, and hope for your players to do well, but not panic if they don't.
Yeah. So the Rangers, you said Gabe Perreault and Drew Fortescue. Those are 2 draft picks from the last draft.
Yes, the first and third round picks. Yeah.
Both played for Team USA, and you know, did you get a chance to watch them? You know, what did you think?
Well, my wife's American, so I don't really have a chance to not watch those games. But yeah, look, I'm from the Netherlands. When I watch the World Juniors, I have no team to root for. I really don't care who wins. I usually just root for the teams that have Ranger prospects on them. So the last 2 years, I was rooting for Canada because they had Othmann and Cooley and Garand on it. The year before that, 3 years ago, with Brett Berard and Hunter Skinner, I was rooting for them. But as long as a team with a Ranger prospect wins gold, I'm happy. But yeah, Team USA, Gabriel Perreault was really impressive, especially in the knockout stages. He had 7 points in 3 games in the knockouts, and only 3 points in 4 games in the group stage. So it's really good to see that he turns it up for the games that really matter. But yeah, overall, even Drew Fortescue for a defensive defenseman put up a decent amount of points as well. And these kids are only 18. They're coming back next year for another World Juniors. And for Team USA, the 18-year-olds are usually playing a smaller role because it's the veterans that they usually have in the top 6 and on the top pair. So next year, Fortescue and Perreault will have an even bigger role. And of course, Perreault plays with Will Smith and Ryan Leonard, the same line that they're on in college for Boston.
Yeah, and they're doing really well for Boston this year as well. So,
yeah,
I mean, they have some good chemistry, and from what I've seen from Perreault in highlights, I didn't have a chance to watch a full game, but he seems impressive. He's got that strong hockey IQ. I mean, he definitely has some growing to do with his body and stuff like that, but his hockey IQ and just his vision and things like that seem to be on par.
Yeah, and you draft a guy 23rd overall, you're not going to get a perfect player. If you draft 1st overall, 2nd overall, 3rd overall, you get a player that pretty much is a product that you can see in multiple ways. 23rd overall or
unless you're the Rangers.
Overall, unless you're the Rangers, yeah. But Othamann in 2021 being the 15th player drafted, even though it was 16th overall because of that weird year where Arizona had to forfeit their pick. The 15th player drafted in 2021, and then Perreault, the 23rd player drafted this year. They're not going to be perfect players. They're going to have some holes in their game that they have to work on. But with Perreault, the pure skill is there. With Othamann, he's one of the best snipers we've ever drafted. He's one of the best shots we've ever had in our prospect pool. And I know with Perreault, there are some concerns about his skating, but those same concerns were there for Othamann. And Othamann in his NHL debut did not look slow. Like, he's not going to be the type of player like McKinnon or McDavid that skates past everyone, but it's by no means holding him back either. So
just let him be Matthew Tkachuk. He doesn't have to be Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah, but Gabriel Perreault in the next year and a half to 2 years has enough time to refine his skating and work on that. So I'm not too worried. But the way he's playing in college, I'm surprised he fell to 23. The Rangers got a steal with him.
Yeah, that's the buzz around the league without a doubt, or around social media, I should say, that the Rangers definitely got the steal of the draft with him. And I think he's going to continue to develop. I mean, Team USA or the USA Development Program seems to be churning out some really good offensive talent and a lot of defensive-minded players as well on the other side too. So hopefully he continues to develop into the player that we're looking for.
Yeah, unfortunately, Adam Sikora didn't have a very successful tournament for Slovakia. I know Slovakia wanted more out of this tournament. It was one of their best generations in 2 decades. And to go out in the quarterfinals was very disappointing. But he
wasn't he the captain though? Yeah.
He was the captain of that team. So it was still a great experience for him. But I know that those players wanted more out of this tournament. Of course, they were missing Slavkovsky and Nemec, who were not released by their teams.
Well, quarterfinals ain't too shabby, especially getting some leadership experience, I guess. So,
yeah. I'm just happy the Rangers allowed him to go because I do think it's a great experience for someone like him. And now he's back with the Hartford Wolfpack. So,
yeah.
Yes. So what? I'm just curious. What is the state of the Rangers like European prospects? I feel like as fans we can easily access and it's more in our face when there's a Canadian junior prospect or a college prospect like Fortescue and Perreault. Are there any European prospects, maybe later picks that we should keep an eye out for that you've interviewed or seen play?
Well, in Europe we only have 2 prospects this year. It's Kalle Väisänen in Finland, who we drafted in the 4th round in 2021, and then Oliver Tarnström, who was a 3rd round pick in 2020. Tarnstrom's rights expire this upcoming summer. I don't think the Rangers are going to offer him a contract. He hasn't really developed the way you would hope. Väisänen is still a year away from his rights expiring, so we'll see what happens with him. But Väisänen reminds me a lot of Adam Edstrom. Like, the production is not really there. He's not the type of guy that puts up a ton of points in the European Pro League. But when Edstrom came over to North America at the end of last season, he was really impressive with the Hartford Wolfpack because his style is perfectly suited for North American hockey. The smaller rings, the intensity, the more gritty game. Whereas in Europe, it's much more focused on possession. It's much more focused on skill. And Väisänen, like Edstrom, has the frame to be successful in North America. So I wouldn't be surprised if they offer him a contract and then loan him out to his team in Finland for another year like they did with Edstrom. But yeah, those are the only two prospects that are currently playing in Europe.
So that Schlemar kid, he's not in Europe. Where is he?
He's playing for Providence in the NCAA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they must have recruited him because he's European.
Yeah, and then there's Rasmus Larsson, who plays in the USHL. He's Swedish. And then Adam Sikora, who's Slovak, who's playing in the AHL. So we have some European prospects. They just don't play over here anymore.
Is that kid Barbashev European, or is he born in Canada? Do you know?
No, he's Russian. He's the younger brother of Ivan Barbashev.
Yeah, I heard he's when I read about him, he appears to be like an Ivan Barbashev type, like a Coach Ed favorite, I call it. Like a guy in the bottom six is going to muck it up.
Yeah, he was traded twice this season because his situation is a bit odd. He's a late birthday, so he turned 20 already, and he's European, which means in the QMJHL that brings some limitations with it, because QMJHL teams can only have two overagers, so players 20 years or older, and they can only have two European players. They call them import players, and Barbashev counts for both. So he was traded to the Shawinigan Cataracts over the summer, and then they had to make a decision. So they traded him to the Rimouski Oceanic, Alexis Lafreniere's old team.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting. I thought it was that you brought up a lot of European prospects moving over to North America. I mean, you pay attention a lot closer than we do. Do you see, I don't want to say a better development, but like a quicker development or more acclimation toward the North American style if they do come over here earlier, as opposed to playing professionally in, say, Swedish Elite League or Finland or whatever else?
I think for a large portion of prospects, it's really good if they go over to North America and play a couple of years there. But it's not necessarily the only way to do it. There are plenty of players in the NHL that have never spent a day in the American Hockey League. And I know people always bring up the rink size argument, and to a degree, it is an adjustment. But you have guys like Sebastian Aho, Arturi Lekkonen, for instance. If the thing is, if you're good enough, you're going to make that adjustment on the fly and go straight to the NHL. But if you're talking about 5th round picks, 6th round picks, 7th round picks, unless you have a guy like Jesper Brad who made that jump right away, 9 out of 10 times they're going to need some seasoning in the AHL. And it's not just the adjustment on the ice. For a lot of these kids, it's also a big adjustment moving to not just another country, but another continent, different time zone, where everything is different.
Do you see a lot of Europeans coming over here to go to universities and colleges, North American universities and colleges?
Yeah, you see that more often the last couple of years. NCAA hockey has really developed into a premium league now for young players. So you see a lot of Europeans coming over to play in the USHL first for a year and then commit to a college program the following season. Like Rasmus Larsson, for instance. They drafted him out of Sweden. He came over to play in the USHL for this year, and next year he's committed to University of Minnesota, I think, Northern Michigan. Sorry, so he's playing for Northern Michigan in 24-25. And Hugo Olas, who's a Swedish goalie that we drafted in, I think, 2020, he came over.
6'8" goalie.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rangers have drafted some pretty big goalies. There's Talon Boyko as well from the WHL, who's I think 6'7" or 6'8". But yeah, European players come over more frequently now to play college hockey than they used to in the past.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, Statboy, give us a stat since you're Statboy. I'm curious here. Give me like
something
a
you
random,
haven't tweeted yet.
Yeah, some
right.
random interesting
Something-
stat that you could throw
Something
out.
I haven't tweeted yet. Well, I tweeted it a couple of years ago and actually looked it up because I wanted to have like an updated one for it. You know how as Ranger fans, we always feel that we give up a lot of first career NHL goals. We always complain about that, right? Oh, this player gets his first goal. Of course, it's against the Rangers. Of course. All right. In the salary cap era since 2005, 2006, the Rangers have given up 57 first career NHL goals. It sounds like a lot, right? That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It's only 22nd overall.
Wow.
The most first career goals allowed, New Jersey Devils with 82.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Ottawa Senators in second place with 79. The Dallas Stars in third place with 77.
That's a lot of first NHL goals, though. I mean, lately I've been feeling like I've been doing these parlays that keep failing on the Hard Rock, and I keep saying, God, I should have bet that because every game there's an ex-Ranger and they score. Tarasenko, Blackwell scored right for Chicago. Like I just feel like I got to start betting on guys to score against the Rangers. I'd be curious on that stat. That's probably impossible to look up though.
It's not impossible. It just takes a lot of time. But I could maybe look that up. But yeah,
I'd be curious on that
because we always complain about this. This fan base. I think every fan base complains about it, but. Yeah, the New Jersey Devils fans really have reason to complain about it.
They got the gripe. But, it's also the goalies, too, right? The Rangers, for some reason, no-name goalies just show up and shut us down all the time.
I was just going to ask that question. Every question I want to ask, you ask first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go for it.
How many goalies do we make into superstars? The first game of the season, first game of their career?
Yeah, that definitely feels like a thing too. Definitely something I can
save percentage for goalies making their debut against the Rangers.
Their NHL debut, right?
I think that's a doable one. I think it's a doable one.
If you give me a minute, I can look that up for you. Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't have to be a minute. The other question I had for you before we let you go. Yeah, tweet it out to us with the episode announcement when we get ready to do that. But I got one more for you before we let you go. What's your most liked tweet or shared tweet, or I guess shared stat of your history or career, right? Whatever your Twitter career.
Most liked, like most likes, or like the one you liked
or retweeted or reposted, whatever. Just your analytically, whatever you think is your best.
I think when the first reverse retro jersey came out, there were a lot of people who ordered, like the dark blue reverse retro. A lot of Ranger fans ordered it from the MSG store online, and there were a lot of complaints because the customization was all wrong. It was either the wrong size numbers or the wrong size nameplate, or the numbers weren't straight on it. And I tweeted a picture of an MSG store jersey that someone bought, and then I think it was one that Oscar actually made, and just to point out the differences. And I think it got over 2,000. I think it got over 2,000 likes.
I was gonna say, what did Oscar bribe you with a jersey to slip in like an ad for him or something?
At the time, I didn't know Oscar yet, but it's that I know that one was very popular. And then when the Arizona Coyotes moved to the Mullet Arena, I posted a picture of the visiting locker room that got like 4,000 likes, I think. It didn't have anything to do with stats, but people were shocked about the state of that locker room, I guess.
Awesome. Well, keep looking up those stats and keep tweeting, man, because it's really interesting. I love going on and seeing these random facts. Actually, you posted yesterday, I got it correct. The only active player Coach, you probably didn't see it, but the question was, he asked a question, everyone. He said,
I did
Gustafson, Gustafson's one of four active players who have played for, one of two active players who played for four original six teams. Who's the other? And I guess Jared Tenorti, a Coach Ed favorite. And I nailed it.
Yeah.
I nailed it.
So the Rangers have given up a shutout in an NHL debut only 4 times.
Wow.
Ever?
I want to know the save percentage if possible. I don't know how you look these stats up if it's too hard, but I want to know, like Coach said, the save percentage of NHL debuts as compared to like other teams, like kind of like you did with the first NHL goal.
I just want to know wins and losses.
Oh, wins and losses.
No.
There you go.
Yeah. Forget save percentage. How many wins the first time NHL goalies?
Wins and
Against the
losses.
Rangers.
Okay, so they've
Yeah.
played 37 games against goalies making their debut, and they've won 9 of them.
The Rangers have won 9. All right, so there you go.
That's
No, wait.
9
Sorry,
and
sorry,
28.
percentage.
No. Hold
9
on,
and 28 is a bad percentage.
No,
Jeez.
sorry. No, it's the other way around. It's
Oh,
the
28 and 9.
The Rangers have only lost 9 of them, so it's not too bad.
Really?
That's still bad though. I think it's the guy's NHL debut. That's what is that? More than a third? No, less than a third. But it's about a third.
yeah, but it's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
them.
All right. Well,
They come out to play.
Statboy, thanks for joining us. We're gonna have you back on for an update. Definitely around the draft. I'd like to have you back on, but we'll have you back
All
on
right.
before the season ends and get some interesting factoids on here. Appreciate your time, man.
Love it. Good job,
All right.
Stat.
From now on in our episodes, we'll be throwing out like, all right, Statboy, we need this for the next one. So now you gotta be alive. You gotta look alive over there. And
Sounds good.
in Ireland.
Sounds good.
Thanks, buddy. Be
Thanks,
safe over
brother.
there.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Enjoy, bud. Thank you.
Let's go. Statboy Steven coming through with the random stats. I love it. That's an interesting one. The first NHL goals against the Rangers. You'd
Yeah.
think it'd be more, you know?
I mean, it's still a lot, but yeah, 22nd overall. I was expecting it to be higher for sure. But it's good to hear that the Devils. I was going to say it on the in the interview. I think that shows that the Devils have sucked over the last decade or so. So like they have a lot of players just getting their game. Yeah, you just throw them out there against the Devils. You know.
Yeah. Right. kind of like we did with Othamann against Chicago.
Right. Exactly. Get their feet wet again. Right.
You got to. I'm going to tell Statboy. I'm going to give him Neil's Twitter handle, and I'm going to tell him to tweet that at Neil, or to tweet it, and I'll send it to Neil if he doesn't want to just call him out. But that would be funny. Neil's going to be mad.
Well, we can retweet it and just tag Neil.
Yeah. That's what I'll do. That's funny.
The thing the thing I like about this whole thing, I wanted to bring it up about the Wolfpack is, I mean, again, Hoffman comes in and just looks not out of place a bit. You know, Edstrom came in a couple of weeks ago, not out of place a bit. So the Rangers are either drafting the right character and players willing to learn. I think that's a big part of what's been going on for the last 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, I think Elias Anderson was the last guy in Kravtsov. I don't know who drafted those two guys, but definitely not character.
Well,
important.
Coach, you and I know that some players are just uncoachable.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, are they going for these? I mean, I remember when they interviewed Perreault at the draft. Just listening to the kid talk, he's ready to be coached. He's ready to learn. Hoffman went to AHL, didn't bitch and moan. He went down there. He asked, how do I improve? What do I need to do? He's learning all these little nuances.
Well, so
he
I'm
doesn't
gonna
have that attitude. Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna cut you a little bit because number one, it's the Rangers have come out and said with Chris Drury as the GM that they have targeted character as a main intangible for their drafting. So they've definitely shifted focus since Drury's been GM to guys like Adam Sikora, Berard, like you said, Perreault, Othman, Cooley. These guys are high character, meat and potatoes guys, right? So they definitely shifted that. Yeah, and they got skill too. Sure, they got skill too in
Hockey,
different ways.
hockey IQ, coachable players. You know that.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to
Now-
think just let me say one thing. I get before you keep going. Cooley gets I don't want to say demoted, but Othamann comes in. He goes to the fourth line. He comes back against Montreal. He's probably one of the best players on the ice.
Yeah.
He was noticeable for 3 periods.
It's
When
funny
the
you say
Rangers
he got
excited-
promoted because I read
Well, I
that as that was the third line and that Othamann was on the fourth line. I feel like those two lines are 2 fourth lines, so I get it.
You
but-
know what I'm saying, though? Othamann went to his line.
yeah,
And he went
yeah.
down with Goodrow and Vesey. That's a fourth line. Look, as an NHL player, they know it's a line, like you always say. You know it's the fourth line. You know
Yeah.
you're not getting the minutes. It's a different ball game. And he just
So-
took it in stride, came back the next game, didn't pout. Those are things that are very important.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. It's especially for development. So I just wanted to say that before we talk about Hoffman again, the reason for the shift to drafting character, there's a couple reasons. One is the Rangers have struck out on a couple of shots in the dark here, like with Lias and Kravtsov, etc., because of character. So they've said, okay, we can't have this keep happening. That's one thing. But when you're drafting in the top 10, you're drafting for the best skill player you can find, right? Overall skill player. That's what you're looking for because they're hard to find. Guys with character, you can get those guys in the middle rounds, like Berard. And, he's a 5th round pick. He looks like he's going to be an NHL player. Cooley looks like an NHL player. Edstrom looks like an NHL player. These are high character guys that were drafted outside the first round. So I feel like they're targeting in the top 10 of the much skill. And then after that is character, which is not a bad strategy. I mean, anyway,
I think it's a less
ahead.
risky strategy. Like I said, like they're more coachable overall and they're more moldable, I guess you could say.
Well, it also goes to what coach said. Remember how many superstars are we going to have, right? So at some point, it's like you need to fill out your roster with guys that fit roles. You have Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere. You got star players. Allegedly, Kakko should be in that mix, right? After that, you're going to just keep going for guys like that, or are you going to draft a guy who could play a third line role, who could play a middle 6 center role? So I think Drury's just more of a coach ed mindset. I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm saying that as like how to build an NHL roster.
It's also the kind of player he was, and he knows what it takes to win. He did win with Colorado, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So
he's
he
one
knows
of
what
all.
it
I
takes
think he's
to-
the only person to win the Little League World Series, the Stanley Cup, and the NCAA championship.
NCAA, yep. There you go, stat boy. So
just throw the Little League World Series in there. It's nothing to do with hockey.
But it's interesting because even with his free agency picks, like you were saying last year, I didn't know who Pitlick was. I didn't know a few of these guys, but they bring a guy Blake Wheeler in. Obviously, he's at the end of his career, but he's getting bumped around in the lineup here and there. Just keeps doing the best he can. The coach has nothing but good things to say when they ask questions about him. There's nobody pouting. There's no Patrick Laine type of guy saying, this is bull crap. Why am I not playing? I want to be traded. That's important in the locker room.
Yeah, I feel like the guy who would do that is Panarin, but he's just killing it, so he has no reason to pout. Right? So it's like he's like the only guy I could see ever pouting if something happened.
That's possible, yeah.
Coach, the Othamann thing, you talked about Othmann's debut. I wanted us all to talk about it. So I want to get Little Ed, your opinion on Othamann, whatever. 12 and a half minutes against Chicago, 7 minutes and 16 seconds against Montreal. So 5 minutes less ice time in the second game. I'm also curious, do you think there's a reason for that? Because after his debut, I was thinking, this guy might get bumped up, in the top 6. Maybe Wheeler gets shifted around and Othamann gets more of a chance in the top 6, plays more minutes. So just curious on your overall impression of Othamann in the 2 games, not just the 1 game. Little Ed.
I don't think it had anything to do with his play in particular. I think it was just a different game. I mean, Montreal obviously played a lot better than Chicago did. I mean, we were also battling from a 3-0 deficit as opposed to, I guess it was 1-1 in Chicago for a little bit before the Rangers took off. So obviously it was a much different game. So if the Rangers came out dominating Montreal like they should have, he probably would have had a lot more ice time. But overall, I love his gameplay. I love his style of play, like in general. So I don't think he's that type of player that I don't think I'm ever gonna like have a complaint about. I don't think he's ever gonna have like an off game where it's like he's unnoticeable or like it's lack of energy or lack of effort. He might go on a cold streak where he doesn't put up a lot of points, things like that. But he's always going to be that player where it's like, all right, well, at least he's hitting, at least he's forechecking, that type of thing.
Yeah, Coach.
I mean, in the Chicago game, understandably, I think they said they were the worst defensive team in the league or something ridiculous. I mean, he was making some really nice passes in the cycle, and he made that beautiful pass. I think it wasn't Troch. I forget who. He made that one through the legs pass in front of the net, and he's just ready. He's ready. I think he's ready. I thought he would have made the team early, but he's there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the question is, can Othmann? Because when you look at the Rangers, look heading into the deadline, and I want to talk about this in the context of team depth. It's hard to say negative things or even question the roster because they're in first in the NHL, right? So it's like, all right, in that context, you're like, what the hell am I doing? But in a very real context related to the consistency and the lack of it you guys talked about, Rangers need some depth, right? So if Othmann can step in and stick, which I don't know if he will, I don't know if they plan for him to, but if he can, that's one less piece that Drury has to go get during the trade deadline, because I honestly think the depth in these games, at least, it stood out to me, the forward depth, the lack of I want to say middle six talent, the lack of Kakko and Hedl type guys in the middle of the roster showed against Florida, Carolina, Edmonton, right? These are good teams. It really showed there versus like look, they win against Tampa was good, but Tampa's a bubble team this year. They're not as good as those teams. The Capitals, et cetera, like we can get away with the lack of depth, but against the really good teams, I don't know. I think the jury's going to have to address that. So I'm just kind of hopeful Othmann can fill that role. I mean, do you guys see it that way? I know, Coach, you've said this is kind of like a system where you can just plug in guys left and right and it shouldn't make a difference, but I'm starting to feel the lack of depth when I watch the game.
I mean, they beat Boston with that lack of depth. I mean, they're beating teams. It's a matter of, look, I've said it for years. The skill level on everybody in NHL is very close. It's what happens when you're not panicking in certain situations, and that's what seems to happen when they're giving the puck away and they're not playing their game. And you hear coaches say it all the time. We didn't stick to our plan. We didn't stick to our plan, and that's human nature. So the teams who make those less mistakes are the ones who play consistent all the time. So maybe bringing these guys in and out is hurting a little bit because of that. You're not used to playing with certain people every night. I don't know, but I don't. You're probably right. They're going to need that one little push in the middle six to have a little bit more of a threat on the third line. We'll call it the third line to finish off in the playoffs, because more often than not, that third, fourth line is very important to get some goals in the playoffs.
Yeah, you can't have 4 forwards with 1 goal on the roster at this point. I mean, that's just a lot. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah,
I think they should be able to find the right combination of players to play on that third line. I mean, I wouldn't. Why don't they just put together the Wolfpack line? Do Cooley, Othmann, and Brodzinski. I think that could click. You never know. But I think you don't have to look much further than PP2 right now to see the lack of depth. I know in years past, or even this year, obviously, PP1 is usually lights out. I mean, they're struggling a little bit as of late. They weren't that great over the stretch, or at least the last game. So it's like just seeing PP2 come out, though, is what I'm talking about. You have Wheeler, VC, Brodzinski, Laffey's on there with them, right? And Miller. So
yeah,
that's all. It's like I don't dislike any of those players, but I don't think really any of those players, except for Laffey or Miller, obviously. Wheeler, maybe if you're going to put him in the front of the net in that type of role, something like that. But I think they could do a little bit better on PP2. Especially with Hedl, like I said, Hedl and Kakko's out, they'd be there. So that's what I think that's where it shows on paper the lack of depth on paper. Even if you're winning games, that's where it shows. You can't really put together a strong PP2. Right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, you have to just look no further than the time on ice. I looked at it for last game. I mean, Brodzinski, Othman, and who's the Benino all had about 10 minutes of ice time or less. Othman 7, Brodzinski had 9. I mean, clearly that's not a trusted line, right? In that game, the coach doesn't think they could score a goal. You're down 3-0. You need to score. Those guys aren't going to see the ice, right? So you got to have guys in the middle 6 who can be offensive threats as well. And just, as good as Benino's been on the penalty kill, he's a black hole offensively. He's not going to put up any points. Brodzinski is a quadruple A player, meaning he's great in the NHL, and he's a 4th liner in the NHL or a 13th forward, and that's fine. He's good, but he's not a 3rd liner. And it just, to me, it's starting to, they can get away with it, but it's starting to become too much. So I'm hoping Hedl and Kakko can come back soon and that'll kind of solve it. But Othman, that would be amazing if he could stick. Kakko, I don't know if you guys saw, he's skating on his own in a non-contact jersey now. So that knee injury looked pretty bad. Was about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And
Well, no, not on his own. He's now with the team.
Skating with the team now, correct? Non-contact.
Yeah.
So he's working his way back. And Hedl, I mean,
that means he's pretty close. I
Hedl?
mean, that's a step away from being in a contact or whatever, a regular jersey. So I think Kakko should be back pretty soon. But Hedl, I mean, at least we saw that he's working out and actually exercising. He's able to do those types of things. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. But you got to keep in mind that then he's got to come back and then do the non-contact, the skating on his own thing kind of all over again. So,
yeah, I think he's a ways away, Hedl. I think,
yeah.
I mean,
I think the Rangers need to find a good center. I kind of disagree with you. I think Brodzinski can make some noise, go on a little bit of a run, at least maybe buy some time for Hedl to come back. But either way,
I think that's the
don't
hope.
know. Yeah,
I think that's the hope.
Find,
but,
like I said, the right combination before going out and spending anything right now.
Yeah, so keep in mind, salary cap wise, trade deadline wise, playoff wise. I mean, this Hedl injury, as bad as obviously, I hope Hedl comes back, and number one, we all hope that Hedl recovers and lives a pain free, healthy life. And if he hangs him up or something like that, I mean, that would suck. But that's the most important thing, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Hedl. But
what's the deal? I mean, for the fans, what's the deal with his contract? How does it affect the salary cap?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. He's got 3 years left, over $4 million a year, like 4.3. If Hedl, let's say there's different scenarios. So let's say Hedl is eligible to return, cleared by doctors prior to the playoffs. If he wants to return and he has medical clearance, the Rangers cannot hold him out, keep him on long-term injured reserve, and benefit that cap space. So they have to activate him. And at that point, if they've acquired someone to replace him and he's ready to be activated, they're going to be over the cap. They're going to be in a pickle. So they have to be careful. I think they need to just figure out a little more what his timetable is. If he's going to return in the playoffs and Kucherov's it or Mark Stone's it, well, in that case, he doesn't count against the cap. They can go and acquire a guy for $4 million, right? So they could pretty much get a free $4 million player and then go into the playoffs with Hedl and that $4 million player. That probably gives them the best chance to win a Stanley Cup, honestly, because it's like acquiring 2 Hedls or equivalents, right, for a playoff run, and it's free cap money. But now if Hedl decides to hang him up, he's not going to officially retire. He's going to sit on long-term injured reserve. The Rangers will have to pay him, which doesn't matter as far as we're concerned, right? The Rangers will be able to go over the salary cap, the equivalent of his salary, only if they spend to the salary cap. And there won't be any of this accruing cap space for the deadline nonsense in future years, because they'll be ineligible to accrue cap space because he's on long-term injured reserve. And that's why you see teams like Montreal trade Shea Weber, even though he's retired, to Arizona and stuff like that, because they want to be able to accrue cap space and acquire players at the deadline, right? Things like that. So the Heedle situation's a mess. We don't really know what's going on. But like you said, he tweeted out a picture of himself exercising. So you got to think if it was that bad, he wouldn't be doing that, right? I mean, he's able to work out with a medicine ball, and I mean that's pretty strenuous workouts.
I mean, I know you can't really take it to the Bible, but like his trainer said, working our way back to where we want to be or whatever, however he worded it, So obviously that's the goal. It might not work out. You never know. I don't really know what that means, but at least that's what they're working towards. They haven't given up, if he decided to retire, I don't think he'd be in the gym this quick, So I guess that's a good sign, right? At least.
Yeah, it is. And I think we just have to be patient. Fans just remember Sidney Crosby, plenty of other guys have suffered from concussions. Zibanejad had multiple concussions as a young player. And I think Crosby sat out almost a whole season. 60.
No, he had he had a bad season. I remember that.
He sat out, I think, like 60 games or something.
I think one time he came back a little too early or whatever, and then had to be out for a while.
Yeah, so people, he didn't need to retire. So players can change their games, adjust, and recover from head injuries. So I think we just got to be patient with Heedle and hope for the best. And the team, though, Drury he has to be on top of it because they cannot go into the playoffs, in my opinion, with Bonino as the third line center. He's a fourth line player. He needs to be on the fourth line. Period.
He's a good fourth line player. That'd be a great fourth line, So that was the goal going into the season. So I don't think he really expects anything more than that. Right now, it's a bonus, and luckily they're keeping. I don't want to say they're keeping their head above float, but they're not really losing that many games in the position that they're in. So,
getting back to Othamann for a minute, the thing I like about when I watch him and Cooley both, they don't make the mistakes. You don't really see goals being glaringly their fault. I see him hustling off of line changes, both of them. And, I obviously they're hungrier than the guys that are in the NHL, but that's what I want to look in their career to see if they still keep that hunger and they're making those good decisions and timing wise. I don't like even when Cooley's out there and he's a minus, I'm watching the play and it's not his fault. He's got his guy. I like to look for those kind of things. And Othamann was hustling back. I think he was involved in 2 big back checks when I was watching him against Chicago. Again, that game could have turned very quick. If they let it go in, Bedard gets a goal in the second period there. It's a lot closer game. It could very easily be like, oh, shit, we lost to Chicago. So, those are the games that you guys know are hard to play in because all of a sudden you're chasing and you shouldn't be.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought both of them do a very good job with that, of keeping themselves in the game where they should be.
Yeah. Speaking of keeping us in games, before we go into Coach's Corner, we got to talk about Artemi Panarin. I mean, and I want to talk about him in 2 ways. One, his dominant play, and 2, the NHL All-Star Game. Now, I know Coach sent or Little Ed sent that article.
I sent it.
You sent it. So
I sent the video first.
I'm going to start with the NHL All-Star Game. Okay. Just get rid of the game at this point. Like, don't even
grind my gears. Sponsored. Who is sponsored by?
It means absolutely nothing. It's stupid. It used to be East versus West, and there was 25 guys on each roster, and they were all worthy players. And now it's like, I'm on Twitter. I'm watching a tweet from the Blue Jackets that Boone Jenner or whoever got accepted to. He should not be in the All-Star game. I don't care that Columbus doesn't have anyone good enough to be an NHL All-Star. Then they should have nobody there. And they're like, oh, the fans of Columbus deserve. No, they don't. That's not what it is. It's supposed to mean something.
No,
and
they don't.
To me, it's stupid. It is. It's just a stupid gimmick at this point. And now they got like a draft, which I can get behind. And there's 8 extra guys going in. And how is Panarin, William Nylander? These guys are not on the All-Star game automatically. They're going to be voted in. They're top 10 scorers in the NHL. JT Miller's not an All-Star.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like,
I mean,
he's not in the All-Star game, but Boone Jenner is. Like, come on.
Yeah, Panarin would have been picked for sure, but he obviously said no because his wife is expecting the second child.
He says no
But-
unless it's in Miami. That's what it is.
Well, no, yeah. Well, that's Ovechkin too. He just respectfully declines every year. The thing with the All-Star game, I think it's like it's a deeper issue. Is what you're saying is like teams like the Blue Jackets don't deserve to have an All-Star this year, or the Kraken, or I don't know what's another team. They're like
Arizona.
then these teams. Well, Arizona's got All-Stars, or maybe a player that deserves to go. But either way, these teams aren't building they're not building their teams the right way. Or like Johnny Gaudreau, how is he not putting up points to be considered an All-Star this year? So I think it's the state of the teams that we should be more concerned about as opposed to the NHL's decision to have a representative from each team. But either way, I think they are making a step in the right direction with the skills competition by putting some money on the line and actually kind of making it a little bit more competitive. I don't have the exact breakdown in front of me, but they definitely, I think $1 million is on the line for the winning team. So I think that'll at least make that more exciting. So I don't know. Why don't they just do something similar to that instead of the winning team or the MVP winning a Honda CRV? Maybe they can win $1 million. Like I don't know.
Each?
Right. Whatever the case may be.
That might be.
I mean,
worth it.
And the 3-on-3 game is just boring as hell with the way that they're not obviously not trying. Nobody wants to get hurt, so like it's just very boring. So
to me, it's first of all, the All-Star game's always been a controversy because they used to have the ballots at the game and who had more fan base.
I remember that. That was fun.
It's always been a controversy, but it always meant something. Like when they did his stats going into the Hall of Fame, 12-time All-Star, first ballot All-Star, it always like meant something in your career. Now it's like you said, it's like a joke. It's ridiculous that it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Well, that it just shows like Ovechkin doesn't care about it at all. So
right,
it kind of just proves that like he doesn't care.
They'd rather have the time off.
Right.
Yeah. It used to mean something to say that you're a 12.
They showed a video of like Oliver Bjorkstrand, right? I think on the Kraken he got selected.
Yep.
The coach like called him into the office and was like, "Oh, so what are your plans for the break?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I got a nice vacation with the wife and the kids." Blah blah blah. He goes, "Oh well, you're going to Toronto instead." He didn't even look excited. He's like, "I'd rather be on vacation with my wife."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, so, great."
It's
Thanks,
definitely,
buddy.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. They got to figure something out.
Well, hopefully we see Panarin.
Every league struggles with it, though. I think these guys just make too much money now, and they don't want to get hurt. And there's a lot more writing on the regular season that they don't really care about the game. So I mean, the NBA All-Star Game's a joke. You think about it. The NFL All-Star Game, whatever, is like always been like, whatever. So the Pro Bowl, whatever it's called. So like. No league really has figured it out right now. Every league you hear about it's kind of a joke. The MLB All-Star Game is boring now.
Baseball's still competitive, isn't it, for the home field advantage or whatever? Or no?
No, they don't do that anymore. I don't think
they don't do that
anymore. I think they got rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
definitely because of injuries. They don't want players like blowing out their knee trying to steal second or, like throwing a big hit in the All-Star Game. Like they just don't want that to happen anymore.
Charlie Hustle knocking over the catcher.
Well, I don't think the game itself needs to be crazy. I saw last year I went to the All-Star Game and it was a pond hockey game. And I'm totally fine with that. I don't think guys should be hitting each other in the All-Star Game. Like you said, someone get hurt. I'm more concerned about who is considered an All-Star.
Selected.
That to me is like it used to mean something and it literally means nothing. Like Adam Fox will retire and they'll be like 3-time All-Star. And I'll be like, yeah, because every year the Rangers have Panarin as their representative or Shesterkin, and he didn't make the All-Star game. So he's not a 10-time All-Star because Boone Jenner had to make the game, right? Anyway, I'm done. All right, let's move on before Mikey kills me. We'll go into Coach's Corner, but before we do, Coach, you saw Jared Tenorti fought Blake Wheeler in the Blackhawks game. You didn't get to bring it up. What did you think of Wheeler chucking knucks with your old boy Tenorti?
It was pretty good. I mean, give credit to Wheels for standing up and going at it. Tenorti's a tough character, so. Yeah, I know they were giving him stuff. They were giving him the cheers on the bench when Wheeler came back to the bench after he came out of the box. So I'm sure he didn't want to do that at the end of his career.
Yeah, exactly. 37-year-old. All right, let's get into Coach's Corner with Coach Ed.
All right, boys, bring it in. All right, so I want to go over. Let's see if I can get this into view here.
You don't have it set up over on the.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I wanted to go over that goal. We went over this face-off coverage a couple of weeks ago, I believe. So what happened in the game was Trocheck had the face-off prior to this one. I don't know who the guy was on Montreal, but he broke his stick. Trocheck broke his stick in the draw. Montreal wins the draw and ices it again. Now they come back down, and they set up for the draw again. So the Rangers had Laffy up at the circle here. Can you see that? It looks a little bright, Ed. Is it coming in good?
No, it's pretty good. For
Yeah, you
all
can
you
see it.
fans listen, for all the fans listening, head on over to YouTube for Coach's Corner so you can see him explaining on the whiteboard.
They had Laffy setting up on the wall a little bit off the hash mark, about 5 or 6 feet. Trocheck obviously taking the draw. Panarin on the left wing at the hash mark in front of the net. And they had Gustafsson and Schneider up at the point. So Montreal, which this drives me crazy, I don't see it. But Montreal is number 1 in faceoffs, I think they were saying.
I must have missed that.
You
I'm
guys
not
hear
sure.
that stat? I thought they said they were ahead of the Rangers. So I guess they're a little confident with their faceoffs. They had their center. They had a forward on the left wall. They had the D in the inside hash mark in front of the net. Forward behind him towards the high slot. And they had the other D at the circle just behind the center. So Trocheck, after that first face-off, must have said something to Panarin. He won't really admit it in his interview or whatever, but it had to be some kind of a play because Boyle kept saying it. What happens on the play is because Laffy's all alone over here, this defenseman
On the wall.
Laffy's alone on the wall. This defenseman in front of the net, when Trocheck goes forward with it, he starts to jump and cover Laffy. This forward starts to go out to the point. That split second of them trying to jump the draw and cover those two guys, because Laffy's setup is kind of the heels play where he come off the wall, right, Ed?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this D is jumping it. Trocheck chips it forward, and Panarin jumps right between these two guys. Before they realize it, they both put the brakes on and turn around. And this D does the same thing. He goes to get Trocheck. Trocheck steps and makes the pass, but they're all jumping to cover a different player because Trocheck, 99 out of 100 times, goes back with it. Tries to win it back. But because this D to me is on the circle on Montreal by the goal line, they're missing one guy in front. That's my opinion. If they have the two forwards here and the other D here, and the other D on the wall, not on the circle, right? This forward goes out. The forward on the inside goes to Laffy, and this D is here to block Panarin.
Especially with a player like Panarin, like we spoke about in part 1 of face-off coverage with Jack Hughes' mistake or blunder. It's like you play like Panarin, how hot he is right now, and like especially coaching on the other side of the puck, you got to see that. You got to realize that everyone's abandoning the hottest player in the league right now, or one of the hottest players in the league right now. And yeah, I mean, the way you're drawing it up makes a lot of sense. And I mean, Trocheck said in his interview that in the first faceoff that you said, he tried to win it back. He lost. They iced it. The second one, he was like, you know what, let me just try to mess with him. I guess he grabbed the stick the same way, but he went it forward instead.
But you know what kills me if you watch it?
And not only was the defenseman behind the center on the goal line, he was even towards the boards. So Trocheck was still able to beat him to the puck somehow.
Right.
It was not a lot of space where Trocheck was able to break free from the center and beat that defenseman to the puck.
I mean, the other center had to be. I don't know what he was thinking because Trocheck normally gets down. He's almost touching the ice. His legs are so wide apart. And when you watch that replay, he's almost standing upright.
Yeah.
So the other center should have been saying, what's going on here? And he couldn't even stay with Trocheck. You usually stay with the center when you're the other center, the defending center. But all around, just a heads-up play and to see it work and not saved, it was great. You know, it was a great job. But yeah, I don't understand why, like you said, they're going to do that coverage with Panarin in front. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. So that was just an interesting point when I watched that replay and I saw Boyle go over it and I was watching the highlight and I'm like, wait a minute, why'd they even do that? You know, and I just watched it like 5 times in slow motion. It was you just see these two guys in front. They start going to cover and they're like, oh shit. They see Panarin go by them. They hit the brakes and it was too late.
It's way too late. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
I like Boyle's analysis on there. He's pretty good.
He needs
played
some work. Good.
He played a lot of games and he's like, oh, I played with this guy in Florida. I played with this guy. He played so many games and so many teams. He played with a lot of these guys. He's like, it's just, you know, the interaction and the fact that he took 8,000 faceoffs in his NHL career.
Yeah.
Did you hear that
heard
stat?
That. Yeah, I heard that.
8,000?
Yeah. He definitely knows a lot. He knows his way around hockey and all that, but he's got to work on the actual TV part. He's definitely a rookie on the being like an anchor or whatever you want to call it. So he's able to explain things, but he's got to work on making eye contact with the camera, those types of things. I think he needs a few lessons from Valley.
He'll get there.
No, for sure.
He's good. He's real good.
Yeah, I love Boyle. I always did as a player.
So any questions before we move on?
No, I think you explained it well.
To answer your question, Montreal's ahead of us by 0.1% in face-off percentage.
They were first. The Rangers were second.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Rangers, yeah.
That's a couple.
Good job, Mikey. Good job, Mikey. Way to start off the new year.
Didn't even have to tell you to look that one up. He did it on his own. Look at that.
He's got his new office over there in Jacksonville with multiple screens. He's ready to. He's moving things around now. He's able to look things up a lot easier.
This is true.
Yeah, different camera angle. Looking good, man.
No more white
All right.
wall. No more intro from Cousin Ed over there.
All right, let's get into our stars of the week. All right, it's really the stars of 2 weeks. So I don't know. It's gonna be a little bit recency bias. Let's try not to, but we'll do the best we can here. We'll start with offensive player of the week. I'll start us off. I took the bread man. I mean, not 9 goals in 9 games. Hat trick.
He's unstoppable right now.
Tough for me to pick anybody else. There were a few other guys who did well. Trocheck and Zibanejad were up there, but to me, it's Panarin.
Yeah, I went with Breadman for sure. Double up.
Anyways,
across the board, Breads.
Not much else to say. The guy's unstoppable right now. All right, defensive player of the week, Little Ed.
I went right back with Trouba. I think he's still been the most consistent defenseman out there. I think just his leadership, it just speaks itself. It speaks for itself. I mean, his gameplay obviously stands out a lot, but his leadership, like with the interviews, I notice it a lot. He just has a firm grasp on the locker room, and I think he's keeping it tight, and it shows on and off the ice, I think. So I love Trouba this year. Yeah,
I went with Trouba too. He did have 7 giveaways, but 27 blocks and 29 hits, 9 games. It's a lot.
Dude.
In one game, he had 8 hits and 5 blocks. In one game. I mean, there's games like it would take Kakko a season to accumulate like 8 hits and 5 blocks, right? So
And remember what Tollison said, like the hitting stat is a little iffy. So he's throwing way more than 8 hits, in my opinion.
8 hits and 5 blocks in one game. So I went with Trouba too. Coach, who you got?
Well, I was watching the History Channel, and there's 3 characteristics of a good general. One is just having the general logo on you, and people listen to you because of that. The other is leading by example, and the other is being a very loud, like patent type. Do this, do that. And Trouba's got the two better ones of the 3, where he tells you to do this, do that, and then he goes out there and he does it. And
He's got the general.
And he's got the
And,
general,
yeah,
and he's got all
he's just
3.
he's got everything. He's just running on all cylinders. And that's like a Mark Messier type. I'm not saying he's that level, but he's got those characteristics and he's doing it. He's not just sitting back and saying, do this, do that. He's just, I went with Trouba also. It's just there.
Tweet it out. Coach
last
Ed
night
compares Trouba to Mark Messier.
he went out there. I think he laid out 3 guys where they were just putting their head down and all of a sudden they were on their back. You know,
Yes.
So,
He's been great. Mikey, did you go off the board or you went with Troops?
I went off the board. I'm giving it to Igor.
I would have,
Won
if
these
not for the
stretch of
Carolina
games.
game.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but he's playing a lot better. He's definitely playing a lot better. I'm pretty sure
He's
Coach was
back.
the one that said it, that he's back or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's back. He's definitely back to a lot closer than the beginning of the year. That's for sure.
All right, can't kill you too bad for that. All right, key contributor award. Coach, we'll start with you. Who you got?
Got to go with Troche. Just all
Yeah.
around.
Echo.
A couple of giveaways here and there that I saw, but you just watch him play. But the one game he had all the goals. I mean, it was just he's all over the place. He's making plays.
I'm with you.
If you're watching the Rangers, you're watching him a lot.
Mikey.
I'm going to go off the board again. I gave it to Mika. Mika had one more point than him.
He goes with the points. Coach, he went with the stats.
Statboy Steven.
Right.
This episode.
I went with
Makes the
Troche
world
as well.
go round.
I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah. Me and you echoed Coach. I took it down. I mean, what else is there to say about Trocheck, though? It's Coach covered it. You know, he's just involved in every play. So
He's another one that gives like just a great interview. Like he just knows the game inside and out. He knows what's going on in the locker room. He needs to be friendly with every player, you know, like it's just another guy that's like, I know I speak a lot about the interviews and stuff like that, but I like watching the post game and kind of seeing how these guys are off the ice.
And he's got a new roommate, Joe.
Teaching him how to eat
this week.
Teaching him how to eat, teaching him how to sleep, teaching him how to be a pro. You heard that, right?
Teach him how to eat, teach him how to sleep. That's great.
All right. Let's do the highlight play of the week. There's a few. So, a few choices here. Mikey, let's go to you. Highlight play of the week.
I am giving it to the whole play, but Trocheck's hit on Bedard up to Laffy, and then that pass across the ice to Panarin for that nice one-timer was just
nice
beautiful.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was nice.
I like that. All right, that's one. I think we're going to have 4 different ones. Little Ed, what do you got?
I'm going back to quick save against Florida with the heel save. That was Florida, right?
Yeah, I took the same one. It's not. We got the
heel
same.
That was
save.
crazy. Yeah, that was crazy.
That might be the save of the year.
Yeah, in general. So had to go with that one. There was a lot of nice goals too. So
yeah, it's tough. I went with the save though. That was incredible. Coach, what do you got?
Little foreshadowing on Mikey's pick. Trocheck Bedard did the similar play against Brendan Smith, and now he's got a broken jaw.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to learn to cross
buddy.
the blue. He's gonna have to learn to cross the blue line and do a little something. I gave it
got hurt again.
Yep. I give it to Keandre. I think it was against the Caps where he kept the puck in, dished it off the wall, broke to the net. He got it back and put a nice goal in.
All right.
I think it was
Keandre
against
had
the
some
Caps. I
highlight
don't
plays.
really remember.
He had some highlight plays, like you said, Coach. Keandre will get the overtime winner and the second star. He had a couple of like highlight plays. So, all right, let's do Coach Ed's Copyright Doghouse Award, sponsored by Suitors Sweet Treats. And you can check out Suitors Sweet Treats on Instagram at Suitors Sweet Treats. Check them out online at suitorsweettreats.net and use the code EDPOD23. We got to update that code, no?
Might have to update the code, but for now, let's go with EdPod23.
EDPOD23
until I get further notice.
For 10% off your order and a free doghouse cookie. And I want to thank Suitors because they sent me some delicious treats over the holidays.
Oh my
and
God.
some artwork, and it was really nice. Yep. And it's
made Coach Ed cry on Christmas, by the way.
You might be the only person to ever make Coach Ed cry on Christmas.
Yeah, it was tough. She sent me quite a drawing, quite a letter. We also got a nice little New Year's treat. She sent New Year's Day or a couple of days after.
For sure. So thank you, Megan Michelle and Suitors Sweet Treats, and definitely check them out and use code EDPOD23. All right. Last episode, Coach, you had Igor Shesterkin in the doghouse alone. Is he out of the doghouse?
Igor's out. And
who's in the doghouse?
I don't know.
You got to bring the doghouse closer. We can't see. Keandre?
Fans, once again, head on over to YouTube to check out the live doghouse.
Keandre's
back in for me too. He's killing me.
I just don't know. I mean, all I keep hearing out of Sam Rose and Micheletti is how good he's doing defensively. I don't know. I don't see it.
I don't see it at all. He's doing great. He's doing great offensively, if that's what they mean.
I mean, he got a little more physical, I noticed, against Montreal. He played a little tighter, but like I said to Eddie, to me, his defensive deficiencies he's not offensive enough to make up for those defensive deficiencies yet.
He's not Erik Karlsson putting up 100 points or even anything anywhere near it, So, I mean, Coach Ed and I were texting about it one night, but the biggest thing that I see is Coach Ed always taught me, and that's what we teach our players now, is turn and protect. And there's so many times that I see like just small plays of like Igor or Quick covering the puck and guys getting around Miller and just getting to them. I know it's not like a threatening play. They have the puck covered anyway, but it's just like a noticeable thing as a defenseman. It's like, I wasn't the most physical player throwing hits and everything, but something like that, you have to protect your goalie no matter what, or just protect the front of the net. And I don't see that with him. And
you got to make a statement.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I always praised him for was his play behind the net, and I don't see that anymore at all.
Yeah,
so it's like
I'm with you. I'm with you on Keandre. I didn't take Keandre this time. I do think he's playing well offensively, and the thing that bothers me about his game, not in his own zone, is his play at the point. Not his rush offense is outstanding. When he's rushing the puck or he's part of a rush, he's got to be one of the best defensemen in the league as far as finishing. But his play when he's turning the puck, shooting it right into a shin pad, or fumbling a puck or something at the blue line, leading to odd man rushes at least once a game. And I don't know. I mean, if you're going to be an offensive defenseman and suck defensively, you got to hold the blue line better. You got to know when to pinch. You got to read the puck better. That kills like any of the good juju you have offensively. But speaking of you, since you all took them, I'll bring this up. So there's a website called Evolving Hockey that analyzes hockey analytics, stuff that you guys don't follow. And they rate players based on certain categories of, I guess, stats that are analytic stats, like, the high-end, high brain stats, we'll call them. And Keandre ranks 94th percentile among defensemen this season, offensively, and 39th percentile defensively. So just an example of analytics matching your eye test. So you know what I mean? So I just wanted to bring that out since you guys are harping on it. The analytics are not saying that he's good defensively right now. They're matching what you guys are saying. But I didn't take him because he did have some nice plays. And coach, like, you took him for the highlight and the doghouse. To me, that's like difficult.
I can't take that goal away from him. I mean, it was beautiful. When he made, he made that decision. He made a nice little chip. Smart.
Goudreau.
Barkley.
I'm going with Barkley Goudreau. And I look, I know Goudreau's not there to score points. But like I said, the Rangers have 4 forwards in the lineup right now with 1 goal. Goudreau, 1 goal, 3 assists, $3.6 million, -3. I know.
You can't really be. You shouldn't be a -3 as a 4th line, 3rd line player.
I'm not seeing enough out of him. I'm hoping with Goudreau that this is one of those things where go through the motions during the season. He has been banged up a little bit this year, so maybe that's affecting him. But come playoff time, we're going to see a little more bite. I don't really see enough bite. He's just kind of like there, and it's with all the injuries that we've suffered, and you're like, oh, the Rangers have a vacuum in the middle 6. The Goudreau should be the 3rd line center. I mean, when we got Goudreau, he was part of a 3rd line in Tampa. He's supposed to flop right into that role and be a Swiss Army knife type guy. But right now, I feel like he's more of a 12th forward. He's just there. Not good enough for me. Not good enough. And offensively, again, a black hole. Benino, Goudreau, offensive black holes, both players. He's been good on the forecheck. I'll say that. His cycle game has been good. But other than that, not much really to look at with Goudreau.
The guy's playing with – the guy did not miss 1 game.
He missed 1
on the ice.
He missed a game.
Okay.
He's actually missed 2 games this season, Coach.
After he lost the jaw?
He missed 2 games this season. I don't know why. I don't remember.
A quick little story. Husband of a relative of Kathy's is a trainer for the Nets. I'm sorry, the Knicks. So he's at the Rangers practice facility having lunch the day after it happened. Barkley Goudreau's drinking a shake at the lunch table. And the story around the cafeteria was he told the coach, I'll be back next game.
No, there's no questioning his toughness. And, I think he's got a lot of intangibles. Yeah, I get it. I said that already.
I can't put him in the doghouse just based on that.
You put in the past you've put Kravtsov and Hedel in the doghouse for injuries, but Goudreau you can't put in the doghouse.
He's back the next game.
He's not playing. He's playing through an injury. Hedel and Kravtsov never done that.
Okay, so he just gets a pass on his play because he's missing part of his jaw.
If you're not getting points,
it's not just the points though. It's just overall like he doesn't have a bite to his game. I'm not seeing like it's different. It's different. There's certain things I expect Goudreau to do. He should fall into 15, 20 points in a season. That, just fall into that because of his game. And I'm not seeing enough bite. I'm not seeing enough of, I'm hearing the Micheletti stories of how he's a Stanley Cup winner and he has intangibles. And like I said, I'm hoping come playoff time that's where it's going to come out, right? Because right now it's not coming out. But yeah. I'm a little down on Goudreau right now, Coach. I know you love Goudreau.
All right, you're welcome to be down on him. I disagree, but that's all right.
It's okay. All right, let's get into the trivia.
Before we get into trivia, it's time to throw it over to Mikey P with your Rangers Ed 150, the fastest 150 seconds in the National Hockey Podcast
Ladies and
League.
gentlemen, Happy New Year and welcome back to the Rangers Ed 150. It's been a few weeks since we last talked, so we've got a lot to get through this week. Before we take a cruise around the league, though, we have some hockey news to talk about. First off, some news close to home. Hockey Newfoundland has officially got rid of the post-game handshake. Just leading up to Christmas, Hockey Newfoundland decided that instead of shaking hands after the game, as is tradition in hockey games all over the world, minor hockey league players will instead shake hands before the game. The reasoning for this was cited as a disturbing number of incidents that occurred during or immediately after the post-game handshake. with Newfoundland being the second highest incidence of maltreatment penalties per 1,000 players in Canada. Rookie phenom Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks was placed on injured reserve with a fractured jaw after taking a big open ice hit from Brendan Smith in the New Jersey Devils' victory over the Chicago Blackhawks 4-2 on Friday night. The United States won the World Junior Tournament this year, ousting Sweden 6-2 in the final, and the Professional Women's Hockey League is off and running, with New York getting their first victory 4-0 in the PWHL's inaugural game against Toronto on January 2nd. Back to the NHL we go, though, and out west in the Pacific Division, the Vancouver Canucks have finally taken that number 1 spot from Vegas, who have lost 6 of their last 9 through the last 3 weeks. Vegas has slowed down quite significantly since losing Aiden Hill a couple months back, and teams like Vancouver, LA, Edmonton, and Seattle have all crept up in the standings since. Most notably, Edmonton and Seattle have been absolutely on fire lately with 7 and 6 game win streaks, respectively. Shout out to Joey Decord of the Seattle Kraken, who's been the best goalie in the league for the better part of a month, and he's playing absolute lights-out hockey for the Kraken. They got a solid backhand with him back there, and they are in every single game they're playing these days. Right now, this division sits at Vancouver, Vegas, LA, Edmonton, and Seattle, with 1 through 6 being separated by only a dozen points. So this one is going to be quite the race. Further east in the Central Division, hold your horses, ladies and gentlemen. The Winnipeg Jets have taken that number 1 spot on the back of a 5-game win streak, with Colorado and Dallas following up in the 2 and 3 spots. Minnesota Wild are on life support after losing Kirill Kaprizov in the third period of last week's loss to the Winnipeg Jets. Kaprizov was cross-checked repeatedly in the ribs by Brendan Dillon until he eventually broke a couple of those ribs, which seemed rather counterintuitive to the league's stance on cross-checking. The Wild also lost goaltender Philip Gustafsson in the same game with a lower body injury. So without those 2 pieces, the Wild are definitely going to be struggling to get wins. Dallas is set to get Jake Ottinger back after missing an extended period with a lower body injury. Scott Wedgwood has been holding it down between the pipes since Ottinger's injury, but with him back, the Stars should have a much more solid back end. Back east in the Atlantic Division, stop me if you've heard this one in the last 10 years, but this division is currently sitting Boston, Florida, Toronto, and Tampa. Boston has taken a few bad losses over the last 3 weeks, and they've come back down to earth after that smoking hot start, allowing teams like Toronto and Florida to catch back up in the standings. Panthers have been the hottest team in this division, riding a 7-game win streak, but all the rest have been playing mediocre hockey since Christmas. In Toronto news, the Leafs put starting goaltender Ilya Samsonov on waivers, and to no one's surprise, he cleared late waivers and is now in the minors. The Leafs have been relying on Martin Jones since, and apparently will do so until Justin Wall is set to return for the blue and white. Finally, in the Metro Division, can somebody please tell me what happened to the Pittsburgh Penguins? Sid's having a career year. They pick up a Norris Trophy defenseman in the offseason that's made almost every single dollar in his bank account on the power play, and they're sitting in 7th place with the worst power play in the league. At some point, something has to give. Penguins aside, the top of this division sits Rangers, Hurricanes, Flyers, Islanders, and Devils. As of now, the only teams worth their salt in this division are the Rangers and the Hurricanes. The Flyers are a giant enigma and will continue to be so until they start losing and end up in 6th place. The Devils should be winning, but they're in the same boat as Toronto as far as their goaltending is concerned. The Islanders have the best goalie in the league, and all of a sudden they cannot keep the puck out of their net, sitting in 23rd in goals against. Washington just lost their starting goaltender to injury, and that just leaves Columbus, who is barely hanging on as is. We have 4 Rangers games this week. On Monday, they're at home against the West-leading Vancouver Canucks. Then they head to St. Louis on Thursday, and finally to DC on Saturday for a back-to-back home-and-home against the Capitals. Lots of Rangers hockey to watch this week, so make sure to tune in next week for more updates. This has been your 150.
Mikey P.
I didn't study.
Mikey P. always with the 150. He's always kills it.
And misses.
He's good at it.
Up in
Mikey.
Newfoundland. Newfoundland. How do you say it?
Newfoundland, I think.
No,
We
Newfoundland.
do this
It's Newfoundland.
All right, Mikey, hit
We'll
us
get
with
it right
trivia.
one time. All right. Everyone, take down the stat sheets if you have them up, because that would not
All right.
be fair.
Okay.
Everyone ready?
Yep.
Who has the best plus minus on the team so far this year.
I got 3 comments before we give our answers. All right, number 1, that's a lazy question. You could do better. I know you just moved, but that's really lazy. Number 2, I love the question because it calls
Obviously,
out
Eddie's
Coach,
going to know that.
it calls out Coach and Little Ed for their recent comments. So I do
That's
love
bullshit.
that. It's a troll job, so that's
Well,
funny. Number 3, I
there's
make
a-
the stat sheet, and I just did this, so I know the answer.
Yeah.
Mike, come on, man. You're killing
And
me.
I ain't looking at
He
that.
doesn't look at it. He doesn't look at it.
Who doesn't look
I
at
have
it?
read. How is Panarin not the freaking plus minus leader?
See, that's why, I mean, Cousin Eddie is right. And that's when I was looking it up because I put Miller in the doghouse too. I was a little shocked to see that he was at a plus 10.
That's Garbaggio.
Yeah, so I will.
That's because it's Trouba.
I am willing.
Yeah.
I am willing to not count this because I do think it's unfair for you to ask questions off the stat sheet when I make the stat sheet. I don't think that's really fair. I literally only know that because I made the stat sheet today.
The fact that
Wait,
Miller's
what?
a plus 10, leading the team with a plus 10, I might.
So
I don't know. Should I just stop
I have to
coaching
check
defense
that in.
altogether?
You sure you got that right?
yeah,
I didn't go off
Wow.
of his stat sheet. I went off a hockey reference.
Wow.
yeah,
That's
What's
nuts.
What's Trouba's plus minus?
9.
+8. I think he's an 8 or 9. Let me see.
He's a 9.
Wow.
He's right there. Yeah,
Got it up.
+9.
That's unreal.
Kreider's an 8.
Panarin's only a +2, Coach.
That's
55 points +2.
It had to be too obvious. I should have never picked him.
But he's got 23 on the power play. That's why.
Yeah.
Lafreniere's -3. Wheeler's -3. Schneider's -2. Brodzinski -3. Benino -5. Goodrow -3. Pitlick -1. A lot of minus players on a first place team. But
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's odd. I guess
Yeah.
that shows that your special teams are really carrying it.
it definitely is. So I'm not going to count this one. I'm going to make a note here that I got it correct. I mean, listen, I'm trying to be nice, guys. If you want me to
It's
count,
very
I'll
nice
count
of you to. It's very fair of you.
Yeah, for sure it is, because better men than me would count it, but I do think it's a little unfair. Anyway, good question, Mikey. I love the troll job. The great troll job.
That's unreal.
Yeah, for real. All right, that'll wrap it up, boys. Good episode. Happy New Year to all our fans and our sponsors and partners and whatever. And Happy New Year's to you guys. I hope you guys had a good break. We'll be back with some more. I guess only 4 games next episode, which should be a little easier to cover. We got one of them is a big one tomorrow night or tonight for fans listening in the car on Monday against Vancouver. Little Ed will be there with Coach, so we'll get some firsthand Norris Trophy analysis on Quinn Hughes, hopefully from Coach and Little Ed. I'm sure they'll be watching him closely, and hopefully the Rangers can just keep it up and stay ahead of Carolina. But if they don't panic. It's all about just getting in hot, like Coach said. I agree with him on that. So write down the date, January 7th, 2024. I agree with Coach. And yeah, that's it. Good job, boys.
Good job, fellas. Great,
Good job.
first
Have a good
episode
night.
back. Yep.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
You
You
guys.
guys have a good night.
See you next week, boys.
Let's go Rangers.
Bye.